and welcome back to another episode of Talking Trollocs. So we've done another 100 pages. We're up to page, 300 and odd?
Yep.
Something. How are you feeling?
I really enjoyed that 100 pages.
Yeah.
I felt like that was the moment when I realised I'm really going to enjoy this book. Like there always comes in a book that I really like, there comes a moment when something just clicks and you're like, yup. And like I just thought that was great. It was a great 100 pages. What about you?
I did enjoy them. I liked how much plot and world building we got in this 100 pages, but I am yet to have that moment. It's just seriously lacking in any type of character development for me. I don't care about any of the characters enough to be 300 pages into a book, to be honest.
To be fair though, like 300 pages into a book is usually 3/4 of the way through. In fact, maybe even more than 3/4 of the way through a book. This is halfway through book 1 of a 14-part series. So, like, are you really going to get that much character development in the first 1/28th of a book?
Well, I've read short stories that have had better character development than this.
No, but my point isn't how little time has passed. It's how much more time is ahead of us. Because if we're going to do a whole load of development within the first half of the first book, then, you know, there's a lot more to come. I think that's probably got to be paced accordingly.
I appreciate that, but Throne of Glass cared about the characters for the beginning. That's what 8-9 part series. Game of Thrones cared about the characters from the beginning.
So when you say you cared about them from the beginning and you're talking about character development, are you talking about character changes or are you talking about character depth?
Just character depth, I think, more so than development. Like, I didn't expect them to have had an entire story arc by this point, but I would expect to have spent enough time with him as a character to care. And I don't feel like we've had that. I feel like, I don't know if it's just because it's also only for Rand's POV that I'm struggling to connect to any of the characters other than Rand, and I'm not feeling that yet, and I don't care enough about Rand. Like, I can read books and it be for one POV, that's absolutely fine, as long as I'm like die hard for that main character, and I just am not there yet.
I found, you know, the first and second instalment, Rand, Matt and Peregrine took two. Like, there were stock adventure character 1, stock adventure character 2, stock adventure character 3. But in this one, I did manage to start to discern differences between Matt, Perry and Rand for the first time.
I'm not quite there yet. I still find them all to be very interchangeable.
Because Matt's really quite, you know, jovial and, you know, bit of a lad, very, you know, nothing phases me.
By a lad.
Perry is you know, kind of more cautious, and then Rand has got this, you know,
bullshiness.
Yeah, so I'm starting to understand the difference. I can visualise them as distinct characters now.
I'm just not quite there yet. That being said, I still really love Moraine. She's probably the only character that I like is really pulling me through. If Moraine wasn't here, this would be a DNF for me at this stage.
Really?
I think just because I am enjoying the plot, but because I'm such a character-driven reader, the plot's not enough to pull me through. So if I don't get that character pull soon, then this is going to be a slog for me.
So what is it that Moraine has that, say, Rand doesn't at the moment?
Well, she's interesting.
But what about her? So, like, is it the fact that she's just part of this sort of coven, or is there anything about the character?
I like Moraine because I feel like you can tell she has a lot of wisdom, and she has, like, she's just lived a life. I get that vibe for her, and so I'm excited to find out what type of life it is that she's led. And I am really interested because she's Aes Sedai, and obviously, like, I'm a witch gal. Whereas Rand, it's just very dull. Like, he's just lived with his wee dad on a farm, not much has happened, and like, well, I appreciate, you know, that's your sort of Frodo Baggins, Bilbo Baggins character, like, I get it, but like I just need to see something for him soon.
But how would you then compare, say, Moraine to the Warden or Tom the Gleeman? Because they've also had quite a life, and do you find them to be pretty boring, or do you think that they've got some context? Texture.
Boring at this stage, because I feel like you can like tell who are your main characters and then who are your side characters who are going to feed through, and I do tend to quite like a side character, but just no yet. I feel like, I know I always say that I like to get a lot of action and I like for there to be a lot happening so that I am not bored in my fantasy in a day, and I feel like I'm getting that. So like I don't feel like this is a problem with the book, I feel like it's a me issue, but I feel like there is so much happening and there's so many characters and so many side characters that like I'm just not getting enough time with my main characters, and I feel like that's where I'm struggling.
Well, that might be about to change.
Well, yes, aye.
So for me, and I agree, Moraine is probably my favourite character as well. When she's on the page, I'm just enthralled by her. And I don't know if I said this before, but I imagine that it's Mira Sayal in my mind. I think she'd be great at it. So for me, there was a really, really good thing and a really, really bad thing about Moraine in the last 100 pages.
Right.
So I think the really, really bad thing we'll start with is...
That's going to stress me because you said a really, really good thing and a really, really bad thing, so you can't then go, well, bad thing, good thing.
So the fact that no matter what problem they get themselves into, she can do something and get them out of it. That's sort of become the formula. That's maybe 3 or 4 times now. Everything's looked bleak, but she's just done something magic and saved the day. You know, turned into this massive big person, and like so, it takes away the risk and the danger that the characters are in.
There's no tension.
Yes, obviously, we saw her getting exhausted after the Trolloc battle, and that was, you know, that suggested that she's got her limits, but she still managed to get them through it. But now they've split up, and they don't have her to rely on. Suddenly, I think the fact that she's not going to be with Rand makes it really exciting, even though she might be in it a bit less. So that would be my only drawback of having her around.
I would agree. It just feels a bit too convenient, doesn't it? So then you didn't really buy into when they're in danger, and that's another thing that really bugs me. I need to, like, I want my heart to break, you know what I mean? Like, I want to have that emotional pull, and I'm not really getting that yet. But I totally agree with you. I think that could all be about to change with the fact that they're going to split up and go their separate ways. It'll just be interesting to see how that's going to be done, whether it is going to split and be multi-POV, which could really benefit, I think, me personally, or if we'll just sort of forget what happens to Rand and we'll not really get any time with these other characters until they meet up again, and then it might be a round the campfire, like, right, well, tell me what you got up to type of situation. So it'll be interesting to see what way it goes.
I think the really good thing that I particularly enjoyed was Aes Sedai versus the Wisdom.
Yes, that was very interesting. Very interesting. On the Wisdom as well, I sort of feel like how you had like all the wee prophecies through it, and I made a note that I really hope that then goes on to play a part. Like, I hope that in later books something will happen and we'll go, oh, remember a way back to book 1 when that was said and that's what that is. Like, I hope that they'll play a part, and like, it's not just a cool scene. Like, I hope that's a wee bit foreshadowing, and like it's actually going to be woven through the story. So I'm having my fingers crossed for that, because I really appreciate wee geeky things like that and just how like tightly woven a story can be.
And what do you think about it's the presentation, isn't it, between the adventure and almost the duty to do the right thing versus the risk and the caution of just going back to the farm and keeping yourself out of harm's way. It's kind of the way that they're butting heads at the moment. do you think there's something underlying between their different perspectives? I mean, we've spoken before about how the Aes Sedai, they just use people as necessary to achieve their aims. She's not necessarily bothered about what happens to Rand and the others, provided that she can get what she needs out of them. Does the wisdom have an allegiance to them, or does she just have a problem with the Aes Sedai and assumes if she wants you to do something, then you probably shouldn't?
I think that the wisdom is definitely biased against the Aes Sedai. I sort of feel like I imagine them being like two wee cliques and they just like are no pals. And so that's how it is in my mind. I think that the wisdoms seem to be a wee bit more accepted in society, whereas your Aes Sedai are still like, ooh, get away from me. And so I feel like there's probably a lot of crossover between the wisdom and the Aes Sedai's powers. And I think that if the wisdom are seen to be sympathetic towards the Aes Sedai or in any way like working with them, then society might turn on them a wee bit. And so I think that the wisdoms are always just trying to keep the Aes Sedai at bay, because they are quite accepted and they're in a wee bit more of a privileged position. But I don't think that the wisdom cares one way or the other about Rand or the boys. What about you?
I agree. I think it's more about foiling the Aes Sedai's desire than it is about protecting them. I don't know if anybody really has Rand and the gang's welfare at heart. Possibly the Glee Man, but he's sort of been tagged along. He's not really part of it either. So I think that is likely to become more and more prominent. I predict as the book goes on that really nobody's on their side. They're just a pawn in everybody's game. And the Children of Light are another example of that. So they're kind of like the gold cloaks of the town that they were in. Notionally, they are the guards on the side of the light, and anybody in the darkness is an enemy, but they seem to decide that anybody they don't like is an agent of darkness, and particularly the Aes Sedai, which again is really interesting about this continual bias against the Aes Sedai, and I'm really looking forward to us finally getting to the Aes Sedai's sort of settlement, I think it was called. But I'm really looking forward to us getting there.
Me as well.
But the Children of Light seem very sinister to me, which, more than any other group, I find them far more sinister than the Aes Sedai, despite them supposedly being just the good guys and the police of society.
I agree, because it's almost like they have the power, at least in this town, to decide who's good and who's bad. Yeah. And so that could just flip-flop at any minute. And obviously we only know little about the Aes Sedai at the minute. And you sort of spoke about in the first episode how you feel like they maybe could be the bad guys. You hadn't decided. I was firmly that they were the good guys because we love a witch. But it'll be interesting to see whether or no the Aes Sedai actually are sort of just like the peacekeepers of the realm. And it's interesting that they have been labelled sort of like agents of darkness, even though Moiraine is like, I will not let the Dark One rise under any circumstance. So it's interesting that the Children of Light have sort of labelled them as people to fear and that are working in the darkness, because I feel like that's the exact opposite of what Moiraine is portraying to us.
Wonder, that's just sort of cropped into my mind as we've been talking, but I wonder what the dynamics will be between Moiraine and the other Aes Sedai, because we're seeing a lot of prejudice towards the Aes Sedai as a collective, but we've only met Moiraine as an individual, and it might be interesting to see if, as a collective, they are all of a similar mind and very against the Dark One, or if some of them are far more ambiguous, and that maybe there might be some interplay between her and the others.
Aye, is Moiraine just a bit of a rebel? She's quite
I can imagine
forward thinking, and
I can imagine her having a real kind of stance where some of the others might be more neutral.
No, that's an interesting point. I hadn't actually thought about that.
So I guess that takes us on to the vision.
Yeah.
So the last episode I said dream sequences bore the pants off me, and I became quite an idiot because it became actually really important very quickly, almost on the next page. all the boys had the dreams.
Yes,
they all had the
which
same
meant,
dream.
of course, I was right.
I mean, we don't know. We still don't know which of them the Dark One is after.
Yeah.
And there was some suggestions at one point that it might not be Rand, and you saw the reaction to that was a guilty relief. So, you know, is the Dark One creeping into all of their subconscious?
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be such an interesting twist, because we're sort of under the assumption that it is Rand, because like we're getting it from his perspective and we're assuming he's the main character. If maybe that was to change and it wasn't to be Rand, that could be quite a cool twist. Although I don't see that happening.
I like the dance scene as well.
The dance.
Yeah, when they were staying in the... I actually enjoyed the whole sequence in the hotel or the hostel or the inn or the tavern,
yes.
or wherever they were.
Don't think they have hostels in fantasy novels.
But yeah, I just found it all very interesting with the rats appearing and you know, all the kind of stuff that happened there. But I don't know, there's something about the dance sequence that was just sort of intimate, and the fact that was juxtaposed with the sudden escape. That was the first time in the book where, you know, when they're all getting on the horses and they're panicking and they've got to try and get away. It's the first time I felt invested. That was the moment that I remember feeling invested, when they were in the stables, getting on the horses, trying to escape. And I think because of that juxtaposition, and because for the first time they seemed like people to me rather than just as, you know, plot devices, and that was the moment of danger when I was really invested for the first time.
Interesting. That's good. Do you think it was just because you got to see them sort of feel like have a good time and let their hair down a wee bit, as opposed to it just being like prophecy, plot point, dream sequence,
I think
escape?
so. Like, it was adventure, pause, adventure on again, and then you're like, oh, these characters that I've just been hanging out with are back in danger, and I've thought about them as people rather than as...
No, that makes sense. Like you were just there sort of having a wee drink with them, and
yeah.
No, that makes sense.
I think as well, because I was so invested in the wisdom Aes Sedai kind of face off, and obviously Rand was having a bit of a dance with Egwene and things. Like, I was thinking about the interpersonal kind of relationships more than I was thinking about the quest. So when suddenly these people ended up back in quest mode, I just felt that extra little bit of investment.
No, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it like that, to be honest.
Do you talk about Egwene and what she's been up to?
I mean, she's not been up to much, has she?
Well, we had the prophecy that they are not going to be together in the way that Rand wants to be, but there is some sort of future destination for them. What does that mean?
Time will tell. Do we think that...
Well, it's not a very interesting show, is it? If you just say, well, we'll find out when we read the book.
I mean, I don't know, Data. I'm no fucking Robert Jordan.
I should hope not, he's dead. That would be illegal.
Stop that! I don't know what it means for Egwene and Rand. I mean, I don't think they're endgame, and I haven't thought that they were endgame from the beginning. I think that Egwene is far more motivated and I don't know, just educationally driven. She just wants to learn and she wants to explore and she wants to do things, whereas Rand was very much like, I'm grand with my farm, mate. Like, I don't really want to know anything else.
I wonder, you know, now that we know, well, we found out at the beginning that Egwene is supposedly
Aes
an Aes Sedai. And I remember saying at the start, isn't that a bit of a coincidence that she's just found another Aes Sedai? She's just told her, P.S., you're an Aes Sedai. It seemed all pretty, you know, convenient to me. So I was a bit suspicious about whether that was true. But taking into account this prophecy as well, maybe there is a suggestion that she might become an Aes Sedai or a member of some other group where she develops a relationship that Rand really depends on, but it's not romantic, and you know, she becomes like a replacement Moraine type figure. Then, you know, maybe there will be some sort of dynamic between them that makes them really important to each other.
Yeah. Or maybe Rand will be the chosen yin, and the dark yin will try to get control of him, and Egwene needs to kill him off.
Kill Rand.
Yeah.
Well, she
That could be
seems
interesting.
in a bit of danger at the minute anyway. I mean, it seems like she's not going to die based on the fact that it's just a prophecy.
I know it feels like
But, you know,
they would have saw that coming.
last seen floating in a river somewhere.
Do you think she'll save herself, or do you think somebody else will find her and save her?
I don't know. Maybe if the Trollocs abduct her,
Oh, that could be interesting.
and this could be the beginning of her journey into being an Aes Sedai, and you know, maybe a bit of a. I hope she becomes complex as a character. There's a lot of potential there. I don't think that'll happen though. I think she and Matt will find each other again somehow.
Oh, it's my turn. Here we go again. Me try to work this.
It's Bailey's turn.
Bailey's turn. Our mistake. Right, go. Ready? Sorry, did I go before you were ready? Right, you do it then. Right, hold on. Right, okay. It says wheel in real time.
So Wheel in Real Time, we're checking in. You said this would be a DNF for you if it wasn't for Moraine.
Aye, just because of the, like, I feel like I'm in two minds, right? Because this 100 pages was the first 100 pages where I was like, I could have read on.
Yeah.
For a plot perspective, but for a character perspective, it just isn't gripping me. And I could see myself DNFing this. Like, if we weren't reading it together, I don't know if I would continue the rest of the book.
I do want to get more character depth. I believe we will. I do.
I'm hoping so.
So I think the last 100 pages went from maybe a 3-star for me to a 4.5.
Right. I obviously wouldn't rate a DNF, so it's not really getting a rating for me at this stage. But we'll see how we progress. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye!